Our top story comes from AP News. It turns out that the Trump administration releases FBI records on MLK Jr. despite his family's opposition. And the reason why we're bringing this up is we keep having these file drops and we still don't know anything. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It seems
we
like phase
Same thing with
one
JFK when JFK came out. I mean, we did see that they were trying to hide any kind of relationship Israel had with those files, but I mean, it really didn't give us the full story.
Yeah, and I think one of the craziest things is that when we read this, listen, this is just like one of these weird things. It's kind of a weird format. So let me see if I can move this. Yeah, here in the center. Check this out. All right, AP News reports that the Trump administration on Monday released records of the FBI's surveillance of Martin Luther King Jr. despite opposition from the slain Nobel laureate's family and the civil rights group that he led until his 1968 assassination, when MLK Jr. wasn't, working with the CIA and other communist groups to disrupt the American hegemony. I added that. The digital document dump includes more than 240,000 pages of records that had been under a court-imposed seal since 1977. When the FBI first gathered the records and turned them over to the National Archives and Record Administration, and in a lengthy statement released Monday, King's two living children, Martin III, 67, and Bernice, 62, said their father's assassination has been a captivating public curiosity for decades. But the pair emphasized, we've been getting them rich, cuz we've been getting rich. So we just don't want you to know. We just don't want you to know. Trifling hoe. No, that's literally what this is. Well, I'm just translating what they're saying, These files must be viewed within their full historical context, okay? The Kings got advance access to the records and had their own teams reviewing them. Those efforts continued even as the government granted public access. It was not immediately clear Monday whether the documents would shed any new light on the life of the civil rights movement or his murder. Let's just start by talking about something a bit controversial here.
Dead ass.
Dead ass.
Dead ass.
Dead ass. Beep. You can hear the smoke alarm. I actually saw, you ever see those AI videos of we call them Lake Worth people here. She's like, one of the Lake Worth people is like, I don't know how, but her Nissan Altima's flying. She crashes into a plane and the plane blows up and she's like, you were in my way, dead ass. It's like, I don't know. And someone said, now do the AI version. That's what someone said. Because it's really how it is, by the way. That happened to me the other day, but it was a Nissan Sentra, so pretty close. And they almost crashed into me. So speaking of that, I do want to bring up this question here. Tulsi Gabbard posted this, and she said, she is a part of the, the head of the DNI. She said that after nearly 60 years of questions surrounding the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, we are releasing these pages. These talk about the assassination. Thanks to President Trump's leadership, Executive Order 14176 resulted in 3 unprecedented interagency efforts to identify blah, blah, blah. Okay, it doesn't matter. What matters here is that it's still not the Epstein files. That's all I was going to say. And then secondly, can we talk a little bit about the civil rights movement? Is it okay on YouTube? I think it's going to be okay. I think calling that movement the civil rights movement is doing it injustice. It is a movement that has destroyed Western civility. It has destroyed, like I said, the hegemony. And it is not because it gave these people damn rights to drink on the fountain, Yeah. You know what I was gonna say? I was like, you just lost your job because you said a bad word or you believe something they don't like. Mm-hmm. But if I want to save my company billions of dollars over a decade by just not allowing certain looking people to use a self-checkout line, I'm a bad person. You know what I mean? So
certainly you're a bad person.
I'm the bad person because I want to save my company money, and I know what the problem is. I genuinely believe that everybody knows that the civil rights movement was a complete failure, that it was not a movement. It was a military assault on whiteness. It was a military assault on the cohesion of our country. And, it's not really about blacks. I mean, it led the feminist movement, which we're not going to fix this country as long as women can vote. And everybody knows that.
Yeah.
It cannot be fixed. So I don't know if you guys want to jump in on here, but I just think it's funny that we talk about him as the father of the civil rights movement. It was good he got assassinated because we didn't need any leader of that movement. We actually didn't need that movement at all. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, he's an enemy of the country. That's my opinion is MLK is an enemy of civilized society. And it's not because I have some hatred of black people or I don't like black people having rights. It's like, I think Rhodesia got it right with the curfew is all I'm saying at 8 p.m. I'll leave it at that.
Well, and prior to the civil rights movement, actually, blacks were performing closer to whites than you would think, than a lot of people would. In fact, it was pretty on par. And what that tells you is, we're told that the 50s, prior to the civil rights movement, black people were so oppressed by the government that there's no way they could have succeeded and they needed all this help. Well, what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that actually this attitude that they needed help from the government, and obviously the legislation itself, is in many ways what harmed them. So it's kind of interesting to look back in history and see those statistics. And then additionally, obviously, MLK Jr. had a lot of issues in his personal life. He wasn't like the best guy ever. And most people know how that goes, basically. But I think at large, yeah, it was worse for white people. It was worse for women. It was worse for black people. And people don't really talk about that. And black people don't really care because they're going to continue to mooch off the government anyway. So they're not thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe actually if I look at statistics and I look at history and I see how black people were doing prior to the civil rights movement, maybe that's an indicator that actually it's not that I needed this legislation. It's actually a crutch.
We're talking about the civil rights movement. We have Pine Sap here, Anna Perez as well, and Snowflake is here. I think this is a very uncomfortable conversation about the civil rights movement. I would, if you're just joining the live, I was saying before this, I don't think the civil rights movement was good. I think it was a psyop. It was an operation to destroy the United States. Anna was bringing up some interesting points about that as well. And I kind of want to get your opinion. I mean, it's like, I think the only reason why they care about this is because, the civil rights movement is portrayed as something, quite frankly, that it's just not.
It's very true. When you look at the civil rights movement, it's all about racial antagonism. It's about pitting races against one another. And we even see this kind of in the history of the United States. There's a priest very near and dear to my heart named Father John Lafarge. And Father John Lafarge actually started an early, for lack of a better term, civil rights movement called the Committee of Interracial Justice. Now, what was unique about his approach versus, say, Martin Luther King's was he wanted the exact equality of whites and blacks. He wasn't with the CIA. He was very anti-communist, in fact. And he wanted a fully rooted Christian context for understanding the dignity of both white and black people. And we see sort of like MLK come in and somewhat co-opt that language and somewhat use that language to his advantage, but with this kind of bent to it that still sets black people in this position of either thinking that they're entitled to things that they're really not working for, or blaming white people for all their problems. Whereas Father Lafarge was all about healing. And I think that's really what it should have been. It should have been all about healing, overcoming divides, trying to mend bridges. But instead, I mean, we've got someone who, claimed to be, a pastor, MLK. He didn't even believe in the resurrection of Christ or the virgin birth.
I think I saw that. Was that a Catholic guy? I saw him out there. Very weird.
I believe so. Yeah. I mean, Martin Luther King was kind of notorious for denying a lot of Orthodox Christian beliefs. I mean, just the most basic beliefs that kind of define you as Christian versus non-Christian, whether you're Protestant, Eastern Orthodox, Catholic. He denied all those and kind of almost went for, I guess, almost kind of like a Masonic conception of like man's liberty. Now, that's not to necessarily say, the Masons and tethering all that. I think that's kind of used as a cope for other things sometimes. But this sort of equality of man was not rooted in Christ. It was rooted in this like very secular ideal.
You know why? Because black people have their own slang. Everybody thought he was a pastor because they thought he was saying Protestants, but he was talking about prostitutes because that's what he was. That's what he was into.
That's true.
I mean?
Oh my
He's
goodness.
like, he's a Protestant pastor. You're like, no, he's passing her in the train. She's a prostitute, not a Protestant pastor. But jokes aside, I mean, he liked his ladies. He liked his honeys, and he got that money. And I got to say, he was the first Tupac. But yeah, I mean, they did this after with the civil rights movement. They had all these gay black guys become rappers and put on this persona of like violence, and then the CIA plays crack. After liberating the blacks, and they destroyed their communities, and even now, you see the same issues. I'm just saying, it was like now there's no holds on these things, and you just walk around, clutch your purse, walk the other side of the street, and put cameras everywhere. And that's like that's the civil rights movement made a lot of security companies very wealthy. Is all I'm trying to say.
That's true.
Well, MLK definitely. Well, they say he had a huge history of loving the ladies. That's one thing that
at least it was
we've
ladies
heard over and over. Yeah, that's a plus compared to most of the people in administration. But you know, them releasing the file. One thing, anytime they do this with races, a lot of time is to cause division, which Pine Sap was kind of touching on, saying that you know they want to divide us, and if you can make more of a class that feels like they're segregated, like a welfare kind of state, then they have more reliance on the government, and then you can kind of use them more as political tools. With them going ahead and releasing these files, I personally believe they're only releasing them because they don't want to share Epstein with us, and they're trying to take all the heat off. But even the files that they've given us are not all the files. Back in 1974, they deleted over 66 of them that were related to this case, so that we won't be getting anything on that. And there's also 2 that they kept out on purpose as well, saying that, you know, they didn't want to pass it on for whatever reason may be. The CIA didn't want to provide that information. So once again, what we're getting is just a lot of smoke and mirrors, where they want us to believe that they are coming to help us, that they are here to expose the truth and be the you know, the party of transparency. But that's actually far from the truth from what they've been doing.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that up real fast. Kind of getting into some of this. Mario Nafal brought this up, that the MLK files actually show that the FBI organized its surveillance on King. This document isn't about what the FBI knew, it's about how they kept track of it. Titled simply King, it's a master index created by the FBI headquarters, listing 58 separate file sections from 1963 through the 1970s. Each entry includes a section number, a brief label, and a date. These point to the surveillance logs, memos, routine routing slips, and internal notes. Some are marked reviewed under the JFK Records Act, and it's not the story itself, it's the system behind the story.
And I also think part of it's like a PR campaign for Pam Bondi and Tulsi Gabbard, because they're kind of being blamed now for the whole Epstein files fiasco as well. And especially Pam Bondi, like everybody wants her out. So now she thinks she can rack up some W's from these files that literally nobody asked for, like you were saying. And I think that's a big part of it. I think they're just trying to save face for the people within the administration that are literally being called to resign.